Thank you. Good evening, everybody. So we've been playing with limitations. Identifying the things that we still consider to be limitations or allow to limit us. Did anybody discover any fun and interesting limitations that they're slaves to? What? Yeah.
This is Jay. And, hi, everybody. This is Jay. And the limitation that I've struggled with the most has been regarding money, supply. I always felt that money was dirty, or that it was the root of all evil.
Can't hear you.
Thanks. I always felt that money was the root of all evil, you know, being happy and all that, that it wasn't. And I have always had a bad relationship with it, and it's been the thing that's caused me it's the single greatest limitation I think that I've got.
And you still believe it?
Well, I must at some level. I mean, yeah. I must at some level.
Well, I trust that you do. I think we all do. I love Margaret's statement. What was,
The phone's not working.
What?
Phone's not working. Just hear we can hear you, but Jay just keeps cutting in and out. Just hear like a word here and then a big blank and then.
Dill says I'm like that a lot.
Just want to let you know.
Thank you. Yeah. Tell us every time. We'll get people to hold the phone right to their ear when they're talking, like they were speaking directly into the telephone. Hopefully the new phone will come soon, but I don't know where it is. I'll check into that tomorrow. I did hear from Dulcie that we didn't fade in and out last week on the telephone, so maybe switching telephone companies was a good thing. I was going to say that Margaret makes the comment on one of her tapes that, when you get a bill, if you were really greedy, you'd send them a check for twice the amount because of the principles of flow. And I don't think any of us are trusting enough to do that. Susan always used to tell me, God's got plenty of money. And she sure acts like it. Two or three people have called me this week about what I guess is going to be our next obstacle. I'll call the obstacle inertia. And it comes in different disguises, but Joel talks about it, and several people have brought it up. I must have mentioned it last week or the week before, and people have asked for more explanation. Inertia is an excellent name. Inertia is the property that something has, that a mass has, of continuing in whatever state of motion it's in. If an object is at rest, it takes force to start it moving. If you don't put a force to it, it'll stay at rest. And if an object is moving, it takes a force applied to it to speed it up or slow it down or stop it. And you get to see serious inertia when you watch an ocean liner docking, because it can turn off its motors half a mile out at sea and drift all the way into the dock, even though it's got the water resisting it because of the huge amount of mass there and the huge amount of inertia. And that has a lot to do with us, and people are asking about it because some of us see perfectly clearly that know the truth perfectly clearly, and yet are behaviors, or at least our instincts, continue to be from the old beliefs, agreeing with the old beliefs. So even though we know that supply is infinite and that I am supply and that God has plenty of money, nonetheless, knowing this clearly, nonetheless, we will tend to take care of our money. I mean, it's an old habit. And this is the inertia that Joel's talking about. Robert calls it habit energy. It's also what he was talking about when he said that, when you have a fan spinning and you pull the plug out from the wall, the fan continues to spin and it spins down. And that's been my experience about almost everything in this work that I've done so far, is that it spins down. It gets less intense and it gets less frequent and it gets less strong, and I care less about it and I pay less attention to it, and it just slowly, like it erodes. But
isn't there a difference too between like our Isn't there like a difference between like our intellectual, my name's Michael, our intellectual understanding and then like our emotional understanding?
Sure there is, but I'm talking about people who really have clarity on these subjects. I mean, when you have real clarity, and I mean all the way through your kids, which includes the emotional stuff, if you really have clarity on something, nonetheless, the body continues to seem to do what it used to do.
Okay.
And we see that in lots of other cases. So we're practicing an hour a day, and we see really great results, and we think, God, if I would just practice 2 hours a day, I'd get twice or 4 times the results. And we don't. We continue to practice 1 hour a day, and we don't double our practice, even though it's very clear to us that the benefits of practice, and that's inertia too, and that's the kind of inertia that Joel's talking about. When people just go on doing what they're doing and don't find, just because you have the clarity that meditation really pays, you don't suddenly find yourself meditating 8 hours a day or something like that. I guess the only point about this is that to be aware of it, that it's not you and it's not lack of understanding, and it may not even be the content of your consciousness that's no longer that's not there. You may have a true clarity on the topic, and nonetheless, what used to happen seems to continue. And I'm sure that's what they talk about in all the Upanishads and all the Vedas and stuff like that when they talk about habit energy and samsaras and samskaras. It's the stuff we bring in, and the fact is that there's a huge inertia in that because we've been, doing those behaviors for lifetimes. This is not even just this one lifetime, but we've been doing those behaviors for lifetime after lifetime after lifetime. And there is a lot of inertia there. So I wanted to bring that out so that people aren't beating themselves up for not stopping something. We can't stop things. All we can do is see them clearly. Any feedback on that, or comments or questions or experiences with that?
Lee?
Yeah.
It's Jessica.
Hi, Jess.
Hi, everybody. I don't know if this is directly related, but it's a question I want to ask.
Okay.
You know how Joel speaks of, when you go, that eventually you should experience heaven on earth.
That's the goal.
I can cut to the chase. That eventually, Herb was talking about, an accident will miss you, or a bug becomes a friendly bug.
Yep.
Okay, so there's that part with regard to having a healing consciousness, and I think Joel said something like, nothing evil will come nigh your dwelling place.
Yep.
Now, cut to Robert, and you and I having this conversation of whatever is destined to happen is going to happen no matter what you do to try to make it not happen. And whatever is destined...
Hello? We lost you, Jess. Huh? Oh, is that us? I guess it is.
modify the phone system.
Well, we switched phone systems so that we'd stop having it drop out. And at least it's dropping out completely now. Yeah, they're overloaded. Due to circumstances beyond our control, we can't complete the call at this time. Hi, it's me. I'm back. I hope nobody gave up. Apparently Verizon has the same problem that Time Warner has on there being not enough phone lines, because it took me 7 times to dial back in and connect. In any event, we're back on. You want to continue with your question, Jessica? Are you still with us? Jess, you still with us?
She's calling back in.
Okay. Good. Well, we can go on and wait till she calls back in, I guess. I guess that's all I wanted to say about inertia. I just think we need to be aware of that, and I think the only thing we can do, so to speak, is when we find ourselves doing that, recognize what it is. And
I just got back in.
oh, good. So did I. I got cut off. That was me that disappeared, not you.
Oh.
All of
I
us.
thought maybe the answer, the cosmic answer, was just stop thinking, Jessica, and shut up.
Yeah, well, it may have been. You want to finish your question?
Oh, you didn't get the question?
Yeah, we don't know.
It's that
We heard everything that Joel said, and we got to Robert, and then God hung up.
Okay. Yeah, Joel says nothing evil will come nigh your dwelling place.
Uh-huh.
You know, and he says things about experiencing heaven on earth.
Yep.
You becoming a transparency, and yet then there's the first principle of self-realization, which is whatever is destined to happen is going to happen. You know the rest of it.
Yep.
And so shit still happens in people's lives. It's just, like Robert says, well, the only freedom we really have is not to react. But then he said, that isn't even, you don't even have free will on that either.
No.
And I understand that those of us drawn to a healing path, that's our destiny. So the question, I guess, is...
It's all descriptive of the way the story seems to work. The story works that if you develop a healing consciousness, the life gets better and you experience heaven on earth, and nothing can come near my dwelling place. And this is the experience of everybody who achieves a healing consciousness, and it's been demonstrated over and over, and this is the story. Now, it doesn't say that you have a choice about that. It just says that that's what happens if you do that. And when you get to people like Robert, Robert would look at you dead center and say, well, that's what you see. Robert didn't see a problem. I mean, hundreds of times I've heard him look at people and say, that's what you see. And they say, well, no, but look at you. And Robert would say, but that's what you see. And, it's in the eye of the beholder.
So there's nothing ever to heal.
That's right. That's the whole point.
I didn't hear what that person said.
So this is Michael again. So what Robert would say would be there's nothing ever to heal.
And that's also what Joel would say, and what Herb would say. Barbara, any of them would say there's nothing ever to heal. And they would also say that there's no time, so there's no period during which you could heal. It's done. It's all done. There is no time. It's all outside of time.
Because we're caught in duality if we see that there's something wrong.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It sucks to be stuck in time.
Fortunately, you aren't.
Yeah.
But the thought that you are is one of the limitations, and it has a great deal of inertia, which is why we're at inertia tonight.
Okay.
It's an old habit to think we're in time. And at any given moment, when we're experiencing, there is no sense of time. The only time there's any sense of time is when we start thinking about things that used to happen or did happen. And even when we're thinking about those, we're thinking about it now. And there's still no sense of time. There's just thoughts that we label as about something that was a time ago or something. So, but there's huge inertia behind that. Inertia, I guess, is also added to by the 6 billion who constantly reinforce these beliefs. So about all you can do about inertia, and I understand, Jess, that really you can't do anything unless it's already something you're going to do, but nonetheless, about the only thing that seems to make a difference. The differences usually appear to be predated by taking an action on it, which is to remind yourself of the truth every time you find yourself going down the path of the old lie that you know better than. Even though you know better than something, nonetheless, if you find yourself falling back into the habit of thinking that, the only thing you can do is correct the thinking, not beat yourself up.
I'm just laughing because I moved into this place where my grandparents died. My grandparents lived here and they're passed away, and nobody's been living in this place. Okay, there's all these rats. I'm dealing with rats under the sink. Okay, this is just happening. This is just in my consciousness that these rats keep coming, and it's my responsibility to clean up these rats in this place.
Okay.
Okay.
And that's either a problem.
And I had my hair done today, and she changed my formula without asking me, and I've got flaming hot red roots. So this is just my imagination too. Rats and red roots.
Rats and red roots, God.
Yeah.
The red roots are really healing.
But it's very hot on my head right now. So my head needs an exorcism. So, including the thoughts. Anyways, enough of my joke. Thanks for answering the question.
You bet.
Okay, bye. For now.
For now. So, I was sort of looking at the obstacles to see where we ought to go from here. I think we're going to be done with this in 3 or 4 more weeks. Some people are getting good results and seeing things, getting some breakthroughs as far as seeing things, so I think we'll continue as long as that seems to be happening. But we sort of went backwards and we did all the hard ones up front. Time and space and limitations and conditioning and all that. So But I think we ought to address Barbara's 4 lists, which tie into everybody else. Remember, Barbara had the 4 lists of things that tie you to humanhood. All the things you love, all the things you hate, all the things you fear, and all the things you desire. And I think we'll start into those tonight. It ties also very much into Patanjali, who says 3 of his things are attractions, aversions, and fear, which are loves, hates, and fears. And so they show up, and Joel talked about loves, hates, and fears. He didn't mention desires, but it's very consistent, and you hear all the time that we're going to have to give up desires at some point. But let's start on those tonight. And I think the first one to take is the premise is that if you make a list of all the things that you love, all the things that you hate, all the things that you fear, and all the things that you desire, what you've just made is 4 lists of the things that are chaining you to your humanhood. Okay? That's the premise of this, and it's clearly true if you think about it. So let's start with hates. Probably that's the very short list. But if you hate someone or something, clearly you think it's real. And clearly you think it's out there. And clearly you think it's external to yourself. And so clearly it's a chain to your humanhood. It's a very human stance you're taking. It's the most obvious one, I think. And another reason it limits you to humanhood is because, well, it's not another reason, but another reason you would like to give up all your hates is that at the next level up, it's all one. And especially if you're hating a person, that person is you, and you're hating yourself. If you're hating, you are hating yourself. You're hating yourself, and if you're judging yourself. It's impossible to judge others and not judge yourself. It's impossible to hate others and not hate yourself, because there is only one, and that one is yourself, okay? So the first thing we want to do is pay careful attention to this and make a list of all the things you hate. And I think Barbara uses this. She's usually talking about people, and I don't know, hate may be too strong a word to apply to institutions and other stuff, but nonetheless look at that, because it may include institutions or I don't know what all, but see if there's anything on your list of things that you hate. Yes?
How close is irritation to hate? Yeah.
I would say irritation comes under aversion. Certainly isn't hate, but we'll get to, I don't know where to put that. Is aversion the opposite side of desire, perhaps? It doesn't matter. If something irritates you, you obviously think it's real and external to yourself. If you have an aversion to something, you obviously think it's real and external to yourself. Or you have an aversion to a part of yourself, but it would be a human part. Okay? It's all clearly a statement of humanhood. I mean, I'm asserting my humanhood. If I hate anything or I'm irritated by anything, Robert always said that the true measure of spiritual growth is your reactions. If you're clear spiritually, you will never have a reaction to anything. Nothing will trigger you and make you react.
This is Jay. I was just thinking about what a wonderful benchmark for the last 5 years, the amount of things that I reacted to 5 years ago as opposed to now. I mean, that's a real, we talk about spiritual stuff being ultimately practical, but that's a real practical way of saying, gee, many. It's light years.
And how's that for heaven on earth, Jess? Not reacting. How's that for the kingdom of God on earth if you go through life and nothing disturbs you? As distinct from 5 years ago, everything disturbs you. Okay? That would be a statement in favor of the work.
Yeah, that's what I meant. That's probably that's the definition of heaven on earth. You just don't care.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So even if rats are under your sink and your roots are red, you don't care. You
That's
laugh
right.
at it, right? On a good day.
Yeah, I mean, you can't possibly care if you understand that things are the way they're supposed to be. The only reason that having red roots makes you concerned is that you obviously don't think your roots should be red. You think?
No, I don't like them.
Yeah. People have a problem with knowing how things ought to be. That's
I
the
could just
biggest
put
problem.
myself as Bozo the clown right now. That would be
Yeah, well,
okay.
you could do that, see, and bring love and joy to the kids at the children's hospital. Just think of the limitless opportunities
That's a
you
really
have
good
now.
one, Lee. That's stretching it a bit far, but that's okay. I'll take it.
Think of the
Take what I can
limitless
get.
opportunity you now have to bring joy into the lives of everybody between now and Christmas. Put a carrot in your mouth and go over, or a cherry on a tomato on your nose and go to McDonald's.
Thanks, Lee.
Limitless opportunity for bringing
I'll be
joy.
sure to send you a picture.
Okay, so that's hate.
No, just dislike.
And the other one, I don't think people are going to find a lot of hate. So we're going to do love separately, and we'll do desire separately, and we'll do aversion along with desires, attractions and aversions, because that's all the same thing. Desiring it or not. An aversion is a desire to not have something. You know, that's all the same package. But fears are the other one, and Patanjali talks about, or Patanjali, I don't know how that, where
Patanjali.
Is it Patanjali?
Patanjali.
Is that where the accent goes? All right. He lists fear, but he says it's the fear of death is the one of the 5 things that makes you human. I assume getting to the point that every fear is ultimately a fear of death. But for us, we have well, there's several things to be said about fear. First of all, I love the statement that Joel or somebody said that every activity that's a human activity is based in fear. And every activity that's a God activity is based in love. Okay? So there's a real clear distinction there. So fear obviously is human. It's the prime motivator for all human activities. So it would be interesting while we're working on fears. And really the work this week is to look at fears. The prime thing to look at is look at all your activities and see if they're based in fear. And not adrenaline pumping fear, but fears, you know, the more mundane fears like just taking care of myself or just making sure I get mine or you know, all the human things that we do which are tied up in self-preservation. These are the kind of fears that we, the more subtle fears that we need to be alert about. If an extension of this, I'm just thinking now, this is new to me too, if you have a motive for doing something, if you're doing something, then, and I haven't played with this yet, but if I'm doing something, I, Lee, am doing something, then it is a human activity, and therefore, if Joel is right, there must be it must be fear-based. I'm trying to get something I'm afraid I won't have, or do something. You know, there must be a motive, and because only if I'm not doing it is it God-based and therefore love-based. Fear, of course, is very much tied up for us in the kid work. because the kids are all based in fear, and that's where the huge inertia comes in, is the inertia that that makes the kid work. What makes kid work so hard is the extent of the inertia behind the kid fears, because they've been going on and been reinforced lifetime after lifetime after lifetime. And that's really where a good clarity on inertia comes in, because I know Barbara, who had enough clarity to teach the infinite way for 25 years, still had a lot of kid work to do. Still had fears and still threw tantrums occasionally when her husband read her script and got a kid reaction out of her, which shows the huge extent of the inertia there, because now this is a woman who's been teaching the infinite way for 25 years and still has this momentum of defending herself from her husband because of a fear that her script event's going to happen and she's going to die. And similarly, I know of other infinite way teachers, at least one other infinite way teacher, who's just as clear as she can be and as sweet, and the consciousness is so wonderful, but you don't want to go to lunch with her because she'll think the waitress is taking advantage of her or not showing her the proper respect, and almost throw a tantrum at the lunch table, you know? And again, it's the same thing. And this is an example of inertia. This is an example of the fact that you have to do something. You know, you have to correct the inertia. You have to see what you're doing. You have to be aware that you're doing it, and you have to know the truth. I mean, tell yourself the truth and stop doing it every time until you overcome the inertia and bring that ocean liner to rest. And that's what the kid work is all about. And I see those examples where it's necessary, although I see other examples like Robert and Joel and Herb and Meg, where apparently it wasn't necessary in this lifetime. What else should we say about fears? I'm going to play this. What I would suggest that you want to do is pay attention to yourself this week and try to discover, first of all, any occurrences of hate, but I think they'll be very infrequent. But all the cases where fear arises, okay, make a note of those and see what you're afraid of, because that fear is tying you into humanhood, and it may or may not be tied into require some kid work. But I think the game I'm going to play this week is to check the motive of everything I do and check everything, watch everything I do and see whether it's human and motivated in fear or whether it's spontaneous. It's either human or it's totally spontaneous.
Is that the only way to tell the difference between a human effort and a spiritual effort to help somebody or do something?
Sure. Yeah. If I'm doing it.
How can I tell I'm doing it?
If I'm, there's thought there. I mean, the same body is going to be performing the act. But if I have an intention there to make things better.
So even sitting down to meditate could be a human.
Well, it is if you're sitting down to meditate to feel better.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. But back to your question.
What if an old lady falls down in front of me?
Then you would probably help her up, and it would be totally spontaneous. Or you'd call 911, or you'd do whatever you would do, and it would be an immediate spontaneous response to the situation, and that would not be a human activity.
Even though I was surrounded by people and I wanted them to think I was wonderful?
If that was why you were doing it, then it would be a human activity. If it was spontaneous, it would be God taking care of that poor old woman. And if it's you trying to get people to think you're wonderful, then you're being human.
Well, I get that,
You're
but I
a
think
kid.
it must be somewhat difficult at all times to recognize what you are doing.
Can't hear you.
Can't hear you. Give her the phone. Say that again.
I think it must be difficult at all times to recognize why or you're doing something, to recognize that.
Of course it is. Very difficult. It requires your being present and aware of what's going on with yourself. Yes, it's the hardest thing in the world. I think that's very difficult. That's why I'm going to play with it this week, but not beat myself up. But it will be interesting to see how often I catch myself doing something when I notice, that there's an activity, that there's thought behind, to see where it's coming from. I'm not saying you should do that. I'm saying write down all the things you're afraid of right now. But if you want to play with that, it's great. Yeah, Christy, hand her the phone, would you?
What do I have to do?
Push the gray button and talk on the phone. That's the mic.
Hi, this is Christy. Okay, my question is, sometimes when I'm being aware of what I'm doing, I will not do something because it is an ego stroke. Okay, it's so where is that coming from? Like, you can tell when, it's kind of like what Bev was saying. You can tell when, okay, what is my intention? What is my motive for doing this? It's an ego stroke, which that could be, a number of different things, like what people are going to think of me, So I'm very aware of that. And what I will do is, I'll catch myself and not do it. Is there something underneath that, or is that just that I'm being aware of what I'm doing?
Probably. In your case, it's just that you're being aware of what you're doing, and so it doesn't happen. But there could be a motive in there. You could be not doing it in order to be spiritual, and then that would be a very human thing.
Yeah.
I don't think it's to be spiritual.
Yeah, that's what I said. In your case, I don't think that's the case.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, in your case, I think, you're seeing it as going for an ego stroke, that you're recognizing the inertia. There's a case of inertia. I know pretty clearly where you're at, and when you're going for an ego stroke, it's an old habit. It's not who you are.
Okay. Like for
And
instance,
so you catch yourself and you don't.
yeah, like if I do something at work, and I'm with a group of my coworkers, and it really worked, and like I can get, this is what I did, it's like, you don't, no, you don't need to do that.
Yep. And three things could happen. One is you could not do that because it was just for an ego stroke. Two, you could tell them because it would be useful to them. And three, you could not do it because you...
I'm clear on the difference of sharing information because it works. This is what worked today versus this is what I did, the little I. This is what I did.
Now, I think in your case, that if you saw that, you just wouldn't do it, and that's the inertia that we're talking about. You're clear enough to know that there's no reason to go for ego strokes, and yet you still have a tendency to do that once in a while, and that's the inertia we were talking about at the starting of the class.
Okay, so that's just humanhood inertia.
Just the inertia, yeah. I mean, your kid has wanted to do that for so long that it's an old habit. That's the habit energy.
Okay.
And so you see it and choose not to because there's no reason to do it. Okay? Yeah. That's wonderful. That ties the whole thing together. That brings the inertia into it. That's exactly what Robert calls habit energy.
It's almost kind of like a glitch. Not a
Use
glitch,
the phone.
It's not a glitch, but there's a sensation I get physically that it's like, okay, where is this coming from? And it's like, that's kind of like the checkpoint,
Yep.
oh, wait a minute, why are you doing this? Then I'll say that to myself, okay, why are you doing this?
Yep.
What's to gain, or what's the intention behind it?
Yep, that's exactly what, I couldn't have said it better. That's exactly what I think we should be doing, is paying close enough attention to ourselves that we recognize the feeling of humanhood rearing its ugly head.
Yes, it happens frequently in meetings, like somebody will share, and you've had an experience, and it's like you want to share at that person, and it's really like, well, I don't need to do that. They, they have their own unfoldment, and they will have their own discrepancy. Allowing them the dignity of their own process.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And see, there would be the other clue. If you think you're going to help somebody, then it's purely human, and you're not.
Yes.
Because you've just set yourself on a different level from them, and you can't operate successfully. If I'm the helper and you're the helpee, I have just put the difference between heaven and hell between us, and there will be no communication. So that's another clear thing, clear indication. If you're about to help somebody, you're in kid.
But what if you're responding to someone?
Yeah, but then you won't have the intent to help.
Right.
If the lady falls in front of you and you call 911 or pick her up, there doesn't need to be a thought go through your head to do all those things, and it's loving.
And the same thing when you get a call from a sponsee or a person in
Sure.
the program, or if you get the email saying want a lift, that it's not
Absolutely.
helping anybody, it's just responding to it.
Right. Yeah, if you're helping people that call for a lift, you're not helping.
And then, this is Bridget, and then right after you do that spontaneity motion of helping, like they go to drop something, you go to pick it up, and you, or they start to fall and you catch them, or whatever that might be. Right after that, then the mind, the human thought comes in, and it wants to have that discussion then, or acknowledgement, and that's when you can notice what's what.
Yep.
Gives you a clear indication.
Precisely. Yep. If you want acknowledgement, then you're having a script event, essentially. You're afraid you're going to not be appreciated and thrown away and die. Maybe Patanjali is correct. It's a fear of death, see? Wanting the acknowledgement so that you won't be lost in the shuffle, so that you won't be thrown out of the tribe, so you won't die. This is a fun area to play in.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting.
This would be a good exercise.
Yeah.
That's what we're doing. This is this week's exercise. This is the exercise for this week. I mean, I threw in inertia because it seems to tie across all of these, and I threw in hate because I don't want to spend a whole week on hate, but this one on fears is the fears and motivation is the challenge for the week.
Because I've had a few weeks off here, and I've been watching. I've been kind of doing that, just watching what are my. I've had a few weeks off here, and I've just been doing that, kind of watching myself. What am I doing?
Yeah. Yeah. What's driving this beast? That's the question. What's driving? Who's driving? Where is my center of consciousness? Who's driving? Is it a kid driving, or is it just not specifically a kid, but a human, or is it or is it a spiritual activity? And notice that the word is that if it's God doing it, it's because you're a transparency. Okay. Now transparencies don't think. Transparencies don't have any motives. Transparencies don't have anything. A transparency is a non-being. Okay. That's why I say if you're not being, and so it would appear to be totally spontaneous because there's nobody here making the decision to do something. There's nobody down here making the decision to help the person or not. I mean, the fact is that if a lady fell at your feet, you would help her. And it would be totally spontaneous because that's the kind of people we are. Other people might laugh or step on her or do whatever is appropriate to them, but we would probably help the poor lady without a thought, before we thought. Some people wouldn't help because they'd be afraid that they'd get sued for causing her more damage trying to help her up. That kind of thing would go on. It would be a very human response to be afraid to touch her for fear that there'd be litigation following it if she didn't come out all right. But we all just help.
This is Adele. I was thinking that, on the road to no thought, like Christy was saying, earlier this year I started very consciously waiting when the phone rang to like the third ring and checking in. Who's answering the phone and do I want to answer the phone? And almost all the time now, I pick up the phone and am present and glad to be on there. Whereas before, it was not conscious and there was resentment involved and all that. It's been a really fun practice to just wait to the third ring.
Yeah.
So,
And know who's calling and who's answering.
that's right.
Yeah, that's the secret.
Yeah.
In 3 rings, you can remember who's. In the first ring, you can forget being angry that they're disturbing you. And the second ring, you can remember who it is that's not disturbing you. And the third ring, you can remember who it is that's not being disturbed.
That's so funny. I do the same thing, Adele. I love that.
Yeah, it's a good practice. Being present.
Well, this is Bridget again. I just want to share that since right after the last class, and I shared this with Lee the last week, but I have found this huge inertia within that ties me completely to humanhood, and I can see the trail all the way back to as far as I can go, and it's about doubt. And it's about doubt of my own experience and my own interpretation of my experience. And it's completely related to probably everything that I do. And I'm going to watch this one. I've been watching it really closely. I started a couple days ago, but I'm going to do that this week, and I'll report next week on that.
Cool. Joel says fear is atheism. Everybody get that? Is it obvious? Is it transparently obvious to everybody that that's true? Good. That's the point. Fear is atheism. I forgot that he said that until it just came up to me spontaneously there. Fear is atheism. Which does not make courage the presence of God. Anything else? Let's sit for a few minutes, and if anything comes up that wants to be shared, just jump in, okay? Okay, thanks for coming. I love you all. See you soon, I hope.